Good evening, and welcome to another edition of the New Black Leadership Coalition.
That's right.
And my name is Gregory Sane, the host of the show, and typically you see Minister Enoch Muhammad, who is the founder of the New Black Leadership, and there are many members, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but today we are very honored, very blessed, and very thankful to have in the studio with us tonight, this evening, a good friend, a brother. I want to call him student minister, Enoch Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
With us today. What's going on, brother Enoch?
We're thankful, still in motion. Thank you for having me.
Hey, Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Kareem.
Yeah, it is Ramadan for the Muslims, and that's something that many people around the whole world are familiar with now and are observing.
Yeah.
And so it is absolutely a very powerful demonstration to deal with many struggles and to make that huge sacrifice,
Yes, it
which
is.
is very difficult for many people to do, you know. But I would say this, that I couldn't wait to interview you because I read a lot of your posts.
Okay.
I read, and many of them they profound. And I know you've been doing this work for a long time, Hip Hop Detox.
Yes, sir.
And many of the people in the school systems, they really are aware of your program.
Yes, sir.
And I had a chance recently to watch it over the internet because
Okay.
you were doing a presentation. I think it was over the Salam restaurant or in the mosque. There was something you were doing
Oh, the
somewhere.
Boys to Men conference at the mosque.
Right.
Yes, sir.
That was unbelievable. But I've just read recently a post about apologizing.
Yes.
And as I was reading, and folks, you got to hear this, and maybe you all will see why we owe our youth, our people, our community apologies.
Yes, sir.
And so why did you come up with this? And how is that going, the apology?
Well, the main, I guess you would say, reason for putting the apology together is because we work within not only Chicago public school systems, but we work in different capacities around the country. So regardless of what city, school system, church, organization, mosque, or wherever we are working with young people, after school programs, summer programs, on the street, the reality is that there's a lot of dysfunction. And when we deal with the dysfunction, the youth, they tell us very plainly that they wish they had better, they wish they knew better, they wish they had certain supports. And when you begin to look at this over a period of time, you begin to see that, wow, not only did we drop the ball, we can look at those who are considered baby boomers, we can look at those of certain age ranges, and we say, well, there were certain things they did that wasn't correct. And that's true, there were some mistakes made, some grave errors made. However, those who were born after 1965, we made some grave error and grave mistakes because we patterned ourselves after what we saw, and then pop culture and the media became so strong with the advent of on TV, cable television, with the advent of 24/7 cycles of the media, with the advent of the internet, all those technological advances, along with our people not changing our value system in accord with what was going on day to day. It made it where we not only inherited a lot of false norms and practices, but we began to implement them with our children. And so now those who, and I particularly ask that those who were born after 1965 we must take up the apology, because we can't wait for our grandmothers and grandfathers and those who are too old really to do anything about it. We can't wait for them to do something. We have to be the ones that say, hey, I'm in my 40s, I'm in my 50s, and we have enough energy, strength, and know-how to be able to say, you know what? I did drop the ball. I did make certain mistakes. I did commit certain errors. And I realized that I have to make a change and let you know that in order for us to reconcile, I got to point out my wrong first.
You know what? I would love for someone to call in after you hear a few of the apologies, to call in 312-738-1060. And I would love, I mean, you don't have to do this, but I think we all collectively, it should be an apology, but individually,
yes, sir,
to recognize. And it sounds very similar to the atonement,
yes, sir,
process, because the first piece in atonement was to acknowledge.
Yes, sir.
There's no other part of atonement. You can't get past that. And you know, because I think about it when you look at the scripture, you say, you know, my people who are called by my name
will humble themselves
first humble themselves. So one apology is we stand in front of all to first apologize to you. Apologize for not wanting to be a parent, even though I wanted to have sex.
Yes, sir. That's a reality. That's a reality. And I remember a wise elder one time made a statement. He said to it was in this Stop the Killing rally, and it was a lot of parents who lost their children, and the question was raised: do many of you parents that still have your children, you didn't suffer loss, do you see your child as an asset, or do you see them as a liability? And when we took those questions like that into parent workshops and parent trainings, we discovered that we have to now rejuvenate parents, because no, they didn't want to have children. They wanted to have pleasure. No, they didn't want that responsibility. They weren't capable of picking up the responsibility, even though they were physically capable of the act. And so now, are you going to now change your activities so that you could be a parent, or are you going to go ahead and do something different?
Wow. I apologize for not staying with you and your mother and taking care of my responsibilities. Really connected to the first one. I apologize for being a modern day slave stud, making babies and not having a care as to who they are and how they are doing.
Yes, sir.
Wow. And these are some heartfelt apologies.
Yes, it is.
You know, now, tell me this, and I know from being a member of the new black leadership, how does this piece connects with the overall mission of the new black leadership coalition as a member?
I'm glad you asked that question. First of all, anything that's new must separate itself from that which is old and look to correct itself. Black is not a color, but it's the essence which all color comes from. So we're talking about truth. We're talking about universal truth. So the new reality is, going back to what you stated about the atonement. Instead of saying, I'm going to point out the wrong in somebody else, no, let's point out the wrong in ourselves first. Point out the wrong in self first. But when I acknowledge, I'm not going to justify, I'm not going to give you an alibi or try to rationalize why I'm wrong. I'm going to say, I was wrong, put a big fat period there, I'm wrong. And then look to see what must be done to correct self, to repent, to change the thought process. When we do that, we now accept leadership. Because you can't accept leadership outside yourself until you accept leadership within yourself.
I think Minister Michael is going to crack up when I say this. But this is a learning tool for many individuals that are out there misleading our community. So if we went to these folks who people look to for leadership,
yes, sir,
and help, and this is the part that Minister Michael, do they have the ability to atone? Do they have the ability to apologize? Or do they stay on this reckless course Because when you think about it, or do we waste time with them and just expose them and work with the people to uplift the community and individuals, or do we expose these individuals? Because Minister Michael said something, before we came on air,
Yes,
and
sir.
I thought about some of the people that he mentioned, and when you think about that we have always had characters
Right.
that are out here masquerading as I care. I really do want to make a difference. But when you look at your program, it has been so sincere.
Yes,
It
sir.
has been so effective. I remember with you, it had to be 25 years ago.
Yes, sir.
I don't know. Man, that's aging us. I'm sorry, folks. It's a different 25
Yes,
in
sir.
Jamaica dollars. No. But you were doing this a long time ago.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, it has a name, but when you think about the new Black Leadership Coalition and this work, again, how does it connect with that? Because I mean, you are a powerful individual, and many of the members that are on the coalition
Yes, sir.
are so. So this work in itself,
How does it connect?
yes.
I
And
wanna-
back to what you were
Yes,
saying,
sir.
back the new piece.
The new piece. There's a point that wasn't in the column of Mary Mitchell, and I thank Mary Mitchell for taking the time to come to Dunbar High School, which is her alma mater, to be with
Okay.
us. But point number, well, I don't want to say what number it is, but towards on the second page here, it reads, I apologize for following the worst examples of leadership where I cut deals that left out the youth, the poor, the homeless, the mentally challenged, and all those we're responsible for. Only new black leadership is going to be about that. Only new black leadership going to do that. The old leadership, they talking about cutting deals. They don't care if they hurt the youth. They don't care if they hurt the poor. They don't care if they hurt the homeless. They don't care if they hurt the mentally challenged. They're not going to be responsible, because in order to be responsible, you have to understand, do I have the capacity to be response able? And if you're not response able, meaning you are derelict in your duty towards yourself, your family, and kind, you care nothing about principles of integrity. You will, as one of our brothers years ago said, you would bend over and give evil an opening. If you that type of person, then you not new black leadership. You old black leadership. And so the last part reads, I apologize for allowing 90% of the businesses in our neighborhoods to be owned by others who make their money, hardly ever employ anyone from our neighborhood. Then at night they pack up, get in their car, drive to their suburb, and take that money home that they made from us with them. So if you're not going to apologize for being greedy and selfish, not thinking of our grandchildren and great-grandchildren, if you're not going to apologize for not being sincere and real in the past, causing people to not trust what you say or even believe in you, if you're not willing to take sustained action that's tied with your apology, then that separates quote-unquote leadership. Because old leadership reflect that. New leadership, it's a whole different level.
And so that hits right at home with what Minister Michael was saying, because I got to read that one again. And I believe that some of them are listening and watching. And you know what? It's always an opportunity for people to find some strength and courage and some conviction. I mean, I wouldn't waste a bunch of time on individuals like this, because some of them are so deeply rooted in that type of scheming mindset that
Yes,
they need, the creator to get inside their head. But this is just for you, just in case this bit would help you. You should be apologizing again for following the worst examples, of leadership where you cut deals. You have left out the youth and the poor and the homeless and the mentally challenged and all of those. We as individuals, human beings, caring people are responsible. Yeah, people are responsible for themselves. So I just wanted to read it in such a way that individually you could see that you know, people like to call folks sellouts, blah, blah, blah. But more than that, that's why I love when the founder and the bodies of individuals that sat at that table,
Right.
like yourself, they're very principled people.
Yes, sir.
And so with Detox Hip Hop, as you go and do your assemblies and programs inside of schools, how is it received by the leadership in the school? How do they receive that?
I would liken it unto a person who is looking for a life preserver, or a person who's in a fire and they're looking for some firemen to put out the fire. And the reality is that you can't put out a fire that really doesn't need to be put out. And what I mean by that is this. Young people have trauma. If you try to placate them and you try to act as if their issues aren't that important, if you try to minimize it, then what begins to happen is that they'll push away from you, because they're saying to themselves, hold on for a minute, it is real for me. I do have to sell dope because my mom is strung out. I do go from house to house because I don't have anybody at home that care about me. My best meal is at the school. I had one student that said,
Or my only meal.
my only meal was at
Was
school.
at the school.
You know, meal, not no flaming hots and some red drink, but my only meal is at school. Home is hell for me. These are words that students have come out and said, home is hell for me. I get away from home and I come here to get a peace of mind, to socialize. Yeah, I come to socialize, I come to kick it, but it's the only peace I get. When I get home, I get on the block, it's hell. So when you deal with that, you can't look at them in their eye and say, well, you got to suck it up, learn this algebra.
Wow.
Are you serious? No, we have to look at, well, what can we do to wrap around what you're going through? Because that type of trauma, you do have to learn how to have some level of self-leadership skills and how to have the type of critical thinking that can help you to analyze, okay, this is what I'm going through. However, I do have options. Because everything I choose has a consequence. And the consequence don't have to always be negative. They can be positive. However, I have to look at it and not just get distracted by what everybody else is doing. I got to do what's best for me. Well, when you go through that process, it allows them to open up and grow to a point where they can say, well, now I can think about algebra and English. I can think academics. But first, I got to think about my life. And when you do that and you show them that, then that's when that quote-unquote fire that everybody wants put out, well, you're not putting the fire out. You're now redirecting it.
Wow. Folks, if you'd like to get in and speak with one of the members of the New Black Leadership Coalition, Mr. Enoch Muhammad,
Yes, sir.
you can call 312-738-1060. And if you have any questions or comments, please call in. And, you know, I think just reading these, it's a show by itself. Every last one of these points is a show.
Yes.
And we would need way more time. And I really want to talk about this in an hour, you know, the show that we do on intellectualradio.com on Monday nights at 10 p.m. So we'll go back over there. We had a fired up show last night.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, the preacher was in the house.
Uh-oh.
Minister Michael.
He's fired up.
Boy,
Fired
I
up.
forget that I'm the host of the show. I be sitting there listening. I'm supposed to be asking Michael questions. That's how I was when I was moderating for I was moderating over at today's Black Women Expo many years ago, and Dick Gregory was one of the panelists. And I told the audience, "Are you kidding? I'm not going to interrupt Dick Gregory. It's like interrupting Minister Farrakhan." And when Minister Michael get going, it's like, can't interrupt him because he's saying things that maybe you might not agree, and I get it because people stuck where they are.
Right.
But it's really time for people to take it in and be more open and receptive to new information.
Yes.
Not that it has not been here before, because it don't belong to any of us.
No, not at all.
We're
Not at
standing on the shoulders of a bunch of folks Because when I read these points, I'm thinking about the Honorable Marcus Garvey. I'm thinking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I'm thinking about the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. And I'm thinking about all honorable men and women that's been in our life.
Let me drop two women named
Please do.
Not only Fannie Lou Hamer, but Harriet Tubman, when the statement came out about her saying that she would have freed more slaves if only they knew that they were a slave. You know, that permeates my thinking every time I look at the condition of us, because the reality is that the apology is all about us taking hold and embracing the reality that we're living in, but then also saying we can make a change. We can do something. However, you cannot do anything with these children, with these teenagers, these young adults that you've reared or misreared until you acknowledge, look, I didn't have the right information myself. You know, my grandfather, he passed away at the age of 92.
Oh, boy.
And that was about maybe 6-7 years ago. And he wrote in his memoirs, that even though he lived as long as he did not know what it really meant to be a man. And my grandfather was being very open and honest because he fathered 4 children. My grandmother and grandfather, they were married for about maybe 20, 22 years, and then my grandmother divorced him because of him, you know, taking the money, playing the horses, gambling, women, drinking, whatever. And those things made it where, okay, he couldn't have a successful marriage. Well, when I think about the things in my life with my father, you know, my biological father and my father that I considered my parent, when I think about other brothers and sisters' relationships with their parents, it's very clear that there was certain information, certain trainings, certain practices that we just didn't know to embrace. We weren't reared up in them. And so it made me even have to say to my own father, I understand. I used to be upset with my father for not being that father that would go to my basketball games, that would do certain things with me. But he wasn't reared in that way. So he couldn't give me what wasn't in him. So now we have a chance to now make some corrections. With my son, I'm making corrections, you know.
And so with your Hip Hop Detox and the information that you disseminate to them, isn't it connected to the scripture where it says, ye shall know the truth, and it shall make you free? So the word free, enslavement, free from what? And then you got this truth. The truth about what? About myself and about the fact that I need to look within myself to fix what's wrong, but I do need to be loved.
Most definitely.
Because one of the missing ingredients that is not in most of many of these people's rhetoric is really sincere, authentic love. And I read love in all of this.
Yeah, no, and a lot of times when you're enslaved by false concepts, false ideas, you don't know what freedom looks like. Therefore, your truth is not propelled by love. There's no respect and consideration for yourself or the other individual that you're communicating with, because that hidden agenda, that hidden motive, all that's right there. And then it bubbles out. Circumstances make it come out. So now we have to say, well, in order to be new black leadership, we're saying, well, you know what? We're going to get our weight up. And as we get our weight up, because we have people that's been doing the work with these kind of principles. Now the goal is to say, well, you know what? Two things can't occupy the same space at the same time. There must be a change. And that change comes because we come into position to do what's not being done. And when we do what's not being done, people will know who the real leadership is. Because you can't bring the fake around when the real comes. When the real comes, that's what it is. It's the real.
And I think the new black leadership represent not a threat. It represent an awakening for a bunch of people out there who's been waiting on individuals that really sincerely care and are really doing this work in the best interest for self and the development of our community. Yes, and that's why they say self-improvement is the basis for community development.
Yes,
and in this information, and with this information, there is many parts of it that will help people develop. But it's a bunch of re-education that has to go on. We don't have enough time to get in, and we've come to the end of the show. You guys been listening to, okay, we got a few more minutes. But if you want to call in, you can definitely do so now. But if you're enjoying what you're hearing, you can also take down the information behind me regarding the new black leadership, and to learn more about this movement, this coalition of individuals from many walks of life, many organizations that make up this coalition. And this is one of our members here in the studio, live in the person, Brother Enoch Muhammad. This is really powerful, man. And when I read it over Facebook,
yes, sir,
I was like, man, that's what I want to talk about.
Yes, sir.
Can we go real quick to one other point? I apologize for being greedy and selfish, not thinking of you and my children and the grandchildren. I apologize for not being sincere and real in the past, causing you to not trust what I say or even believe in me.
And that came directly from the mouths of teenagers and elementary school students who, when we would over the last year and a half, we would do the apology with groups of students. And the question was, would you accept my apology? And 99% said, I would accept your apology. But the 1% that wouldn't said, it's not you that I don't trust the adults.
Oh,
so I don't feel comfortable saying I'm going to accept an apology, because I know there's people in my household I would never accept their apology because they keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And what it made me to understand is that we have young people that are watching our actions. You know, back in the day, they used to have a saying, you know, do as I say, but not as I do. You can't tell children that today.
Right.
You can't do that.
And in building relationships, the trust is what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Because, I mean, we've all heard it as men and women, where we're trying to build a cohesive, healthy relationship to one day become one. But the major thing is, can I trust you? Can you trust me? And it's called truth, back to truth. Can we tell each other the truth? And if it's founded on those principles, the foundation is much stronger, even when it's up against adversity and it's
Most
up
definitely.
against other, forces.
Most definitely.
Because the forces are out there.
Most definitely.
When is your next event?
Well, this is the 10-year anniversary of Hip Hop Detox. So if you want to know more about our events that are coming up, you can go to our website, which is www.hiphopdetox.org. That's hiphopdetox.org. And we have a cultural revolution that's going to take place over the next couple of months for Hip Hop Heritage Month. And there's going to be things that's going on that's dealing with the healing aspect of what we do.
Well, I'm glad you got that in.
Yeah.
We got to wrap it up. See you all next week, same time,
Peace
same
and love.
station. Peace and love. You've been listening to the New Black Leadership Coalition. Peace out.
Peace.
Thank you.